Hello folks at YouTube, this is Shooting Nerd, and in case you can't guess, I'm reviewing a headlamp, a Petzl MYO RXP. It doesn't really say anywhere on my profile that I recall, but I live in Southern California, and out here earthquakes are very much a reality. And very much, even more so in more recent months, we've had a number of earthquakes moving up from the Sea of Cortez between mainland Mexico and the Baja Peninsula, and they've been moving steadily north up essentially up the San Andreas Fault, getting closer to the LA Basin and whatnot. And now seems like as good a time as any to try to get a little bit more prepared. And part of that is for me getting an earthquake kit that can get me from my work or on the road and get myself back home. And to me, as far as I'm concerned, a significant part of that is a reliable, high output light source, and that fits in with the rest of my intended use. And again, here we are with MYO RXP. For a little bit of background, I used to do quite a bit of running, and I used to use the Petzl Tika Plus. It's a nice little headlamp, fairly simple, straightforward to use, uses 3 AAA batteries. It puts out 50 lumens, which is a nice little bit. The MYO RXP has a little bit higher output. Takes 3 AA's and puts out about 140 lumens in normal high mode. This is very nice. It actually probably would almost work, except for the fact that, like I just mentioned, it takes AA's. Part of my goal of getting my earthquake kits is I'm trying to get as unified as I can in all of my equipment. I want to, if I have any equipment that takes batteries, I want it to take all AA's. That's one of the advantages of this, is this does in fact take AA batteries. And it turned out to be a little bit more of a challenge than I thought to find one. This one, actually these batteries are the ones that came with it. There are a few headlamps out there that take AA's. Most of them actually have a battery pack that attaches to the waist. Petzl does actually have another one that attaches to the head, just like this one does. However, it wouldn't or recommended not using the lithium batteries. And I don't know whether you're aware, but the Energizer E² lithium batteries are known to have higher output and just tend to be very good for electronic devices and fairly high output electronic devices like this. And so that's what I plan on carrying. So I'd like to have all my devices that can use AA lithium batteries, and this one happens to fit the bill. The other Petzl out there that's very similar in design that takes AA's, specifically recommended against lithium because the thing will overheat. There is a downside though. If I slide this into view, the original, the Tika Plus weighs about 2.65, 2.7 grams, and this one weighs 5.8 grams. That's a lot of weight. The only saving grace to this is if I'm going to be trying to get hiking my butt home from work, a couple of extra ounces on my head isn't a big deal. When I was going running and stuff, you wanted something as light as you could possibly get, and that was for a couple of reasons. One, you don't want to be, it's a lot more important to minimize your weight when you're running, but also two, this thing's going to be flopping around when you're running. I sure as heck don't plan on running, so as long as this thing doesn't flop down too badly, it shouldn't be a problem. One thing that this does come with is an actual over-the-top strap, so you can actually put a strap from side to side. Personally, I don't care to do that, but that is an option. A few of the technical specs that they talk about. They say that at maximum output, which is high power, this thing should last for 95 hours, and that's at 140 lumens. And as I showed you momentarily ago, that's a pretty bright light. This also does have a neat little lens on the front that turns it from what is more of a spotlight into a more diffuse light. It's still fairly directional, but for trying to get home, that's just fine. Like most Petzl products, it does come with its own batteries. Comes in a fairly decent package. What is kind of surprising though is the encyclopedia, as far as a headlamp is concerned, that this thing comes with. turns out that the way they allow this product to have high output lithium batteries and have a light that's not going to overheat is that there's actually a microprocessor controller in here. Now this one, if you look at the older ones, there is a bit of a controller because you can do on, medium, low, and then SOS flash. This new one has the same exact functionality. However, the 3 buttons that are, high, medium, low are actually programmable. This thing has built-in, has 10 power outputs, 1 through 10. 1 being the highest output, or pardon me, 1 being the lowest output, 10 being the highest output. And out of the factory, it comes out at roughly 25 lumens, 51 lumens, and 141 lumens. However, if you want to have extended hour or extended output in terms of wear time, you can drop that down even lower. Oh, and it turns out I had this one. This 95 hours I mentioned here is actually at the lowest output. At maximum output, you only get 50 hours. To contrast that with this one will put out 50 lumens at maximum output, and I think it's comparable in about 8 to 10 lumens at low. This one will last, I think they say, about 100 hours at lowest output. Couple of disadvantages, as I mentioned already, this thing is heavy. Almost 6 ounces. It's got a wire that you got to do, or cable that you have to hassle with. Actually, you have to worry about programming it, and it's just not quite as simple and easy to use. Pardon me. And quite honestly, it just doesn't feel quite as ergonomic as this one. This one's just nice and easy to use, fairly easy to get this tactile button here. This button here, it's there, but I mean, I'm not real thrilled with it. Oh, one other thing. It's not really obvious on when I have it on max power, but there's what they call a turbo button or a boost button that puts this actually at higher than maximum output. Maximum output like that is 140 lumens. You can't see it here, but this actually bumps up to 160. Kind of worthless in my opinion, but if you're running at low output, trying to save battery life, having an option to be able to just give a quick little bit of extra light would be useful, but obviously at high power, there's no visible difference. Oh, and there's the SOS, like the other one had. Overall, am I happy with it? I don't know. These things list for about 99 bucks. I managed to find a sale online and got it for 79 bucks. In terms of fitting for my intended use with my earthquake kit, it's really, really good. But like I said, a little expensive and a little bit tough, or a little bit heavy. The one thing I do have a serious concern about is, one thing I intend to do is I like to wear a hat when I'm outside a lot. Wearing a hat at night might not be so important as far as, if I'm at night, I'm not worrying about the sun getting in my eyes. However, it does get a little bit chilly here in the wintertime, and with rain outside especially, it's nice to have some covering for your head. And if you remember or happen to notice in my one video and my gun recommendations for Artisan Tony, I'm getting a little bit thin-haired on top, so having any extra coverage would be nice. I'm not quite sure how this is going to work out. I will say that their battery closure is kind of nice, and they've done some nice things with this. I'm still on the fence about it. At 50 hours, that's going to be more than adequate, more than likely to get me home if I have to. As far as, like I said, the intended use of this, although we'll have to see when I actually try this thing out and whether or not I can actually wear a hat on top of it, or how I'm going to have to work that out. But that is a consideration I'm going to have to worry about. Also, like I said, if you want to try to use some of the more advanced functionality, there's actually a little bit of programming you have to do to get this. It's nothing terribly complicated. It's just holding that. It's kind of like doing some of the earlier digital watches. You have to hold down one button, hold down the second button for count to 3, then press 1 a certain number of times. It's a hassle, but not anything hideous, but it's something to consider. One other aspect, and I'm not sure that it's going to show up here very well, is what they call, this light also has what's called regulated output. With most flashlights and light outputs that are powered by batteries, the fresher the batteries are, the brighter the light's going to be. And it's just simple linear voltage versus output, fairly straightforward. This one actually has, at lower levels, it actually regulates the light output so that it stays fairly constant until it gets to a certain point, and then it's just going to drop off pretty rapidly. I can see that as being good and bad. Good in that you keep your battery, or you keep a pretty solid and consistent amount of light for a long period of time. However, it doesn't give you a whole lot of warning from what I can tell when it goes south. One thing it does have though is, I don't know if you can see it right here, there is a little LED that lights up to tell you, oh, there you can see it's all lit green. It's just a battery life indicator. Nice to have, but if this is on top of your head, it's not going to be all that useful. So there you have it, my quick and dirty review of the MYO RXP headlamp made by Petzl. It's a quality piece, it's a high dollar piece, and I think actually if you're doing something like light caving or you're doing nighttime hiking, I think this would be actually a really good idea. But if the moment you want to start wearing a hat or anything like that, it might get in the way a little bit. But at any rate, if you have any questions or comments you want to put it, please put them in the comment section below. Otherwise, enjoy yourself and take care.